Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very first workshop on programming. And this is the foundations of programming. I like to call it Assembling Your Coder's Toolkit. This is a Within Code digital inclusion workshop. And our goal today is to actually understand the very foundation of coding, which is an essential knowledge for anyone aspiring to become a software developer or interested in learning coding or software development. Now, it's very important that we first understand what is programming and understanding IDEs and what programming languages are. And by the end of this, hopefully, we will have enough time to actually output at the end of our second day a rock paper scissors game using Python. Now, what is programming, you ask? Programming is simply giving a computer a set of instructions to follow, and we write these instructions using a programming language. And our programming language of choice today would actually be Python. And we usually write this code, or this language of this code, in an integrated development environment, or what we like to call an IDE, which is kind of a tool which we use, or an app that we use to actually write in, like how you would write in Microsoft Word, but you write code in it, and you actually run your instructions of your code in that IDE, or integrated development environment. The popular one we're going to be use is very beginner friendly. Is called Visual Studio Code, and it's very easy to install and obtain. You would actually just go to Google and Google actual Visual Studio Code, as seen on my screen now. And if it's not already installed on your system, you can go ahead into the website, press the download button, and download the required version for your system and follow the installation instructions. So once you have done that and installed your Visual Studio Code, you should end up with a screen like this. And we are actually going to open up a folder and create maybe a folder for this workshop. So I'm going to create a new folder in this case, and you can do it that mine's a Mac OS, but if you have Linux or Windows, you can do it as your machine requires for you to create a new folder. I'm going to make this folder called WTC, which stands for Within Code Workshop. And then I know exactly where to find it in my documents the next time I'm looking. So we're going to open that up, and we're going to see we have a totally empty folder with no files. And we are going to actually do one of my most favorite things in programming is the first task you will ever do, and that is the hello world task. It gives you such power, it makes it feel awesome, and you feel like you're becoming a real coder. So we'll be using the print function that's built into Python for displaying this method. And just a word of advice for those of you that have freshly installed Visual Studio Code, please try and install Python on your system if it is not already there. And it might be a good idea to also install the Python extension. So once you search for the Python extension, we can see here's the Python extension, and we would like you to download the official Microsoft Python extension if you are grabbing the extension. Awesome. And then we can move on to the next step, which is actually creating our file. And we are going to write our very first piece of code in this file, and we're going to call this file hello. And it's very important, this step. You have to make a .py at the end to make sure that the file knows it's a Python file. Awesome. And we are going to print hello world. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Right. Right. And we are actually going to use the word print, and then we're going to put semicolons, because semicolons say that this is a string. We'll be going through variables and data types in a bit, but yeah, we can write it like this: hello world. So our quotation marks are there. Sorry, not semicolons, quotation marks, and the quotation marks go, and you press play and you see hello world, and that is awesome. It still feels great, like it's the first time again. Uh, and when you run this, the computer just simply, when you press this run button right here, this computer simply just runs the instructions line by line, and the only instruction that we've set here is for it to print hello world. if we had said print hello world and then print brackets, quotation marks, hi, hello, we would actually see that happen line after line. Awesome. We run the play button, and if you want, depending on your system, you might type Python or you might type Python 3. In this case, I would type Python 3, and let's run our file hello.py, and we can see it actually runs. That is awesome. You are going to love this next part if you've enjoyed it so far. Now, our next tool is storing information in variables. Now, let us talk data types in variables. Variables are like containers or labeled boxes in the computer's memory, and these boxes hold different pieces of information. When we talk about data types, we're referring to the type of information stored in it, and there could be different data types that you are referring to. The the kind of information refers to the type of data type. So you get two. The first one being text, which is called a string, or whole numbers, which is called an integer. So we can see here, for example, when we're storing a text or a string in this case, our name is going to equal to quotation marks sipo. And then if you're storing a whole number or an integer, in this case, we can see age is equal to 22. And we can see when you're using a number, you actually don't use quotation marks, because if you do use quotation marks, it will take it as a string or a text and not a number. So let us go to our IDE and we will actually run this. So I'm going to call this variables.py again. Um, don't forget the .py, because that's make sure that the file knows that it's a Python file and it's going to run Python code. So we create a variable by giving it a name and assigning it to a value using the equal sign. So we're going to put name is equal to quotation marks sipo, and if these quotation marks are not here, you can actually see there's an error. You can see that C4 is not defined because it's looking for another variable. So we have to put it in quotation marks. And then we can set the user's age to be 22, right? And as you can see, the name C4 is a string variable, and the age here is an integer variable. Yeah, and this variable name means that the variable name holds CPO and the variable age holds the number 22. So now we're going to actually do some string operations, and these are oftentimes we need to join different pieces of data together, like combining a text in a variable, and this process is called concatenation, which is a key part of string operations. So I'm going to make it concat.py because that's what we're going to be doing here, and we're going to join these different pieces of data together, which we are holding. And as you see here, we can join different pieces of text and variable using the plus sign. This is actually called concatenation from the slide. So we have our name is Sipo, and we can have a greeting, and we can actually greet Sipo. And we're going to store this entire greeting in a variable. So we have, in this case, our name is equal to Sipo, and that's a string variable. And then we're going to have a variable called greeting, which is equal to our greeting, which is welcome, and then plus our name, right? And that's concatenating a string with a variable. And now let's go ahead and we'll actually print greeting out for us. And as you see, we're going to get welcome Sipo as our greeting. Awesome. Now we are going to do our third and final exercise, which would be actually getting input from a user. In this case, we're going to ask a user in our terminal here at the bottom of our screen to enter something. And we're going to make it more interactive because getting user input is more dynamic. The input function pauses the program and waits for you to respond in the terminal and to type a response. So we are going to actually ask someone what their favorite color is. And I'm going to name this input.py to make it a bit more clear as to what we're doing. And we are going to ask the user, we're going to say our user input variable in this case is the input of what is your favorite color, right? And after we ask the user what their favorite color is, we actually want to print that we like this color too. Maybe we want to inform the user that we also like that color. So we're going to put print and I like the color and then 2. And then let us actually play this and let's see what happens. So as you see, it's asking us what our favorite color is, and my favorite color is actually red. So we see that it replies with I like red too. We see that we dynamically take the user input first in the stage, and then after that stage, we actually take that variable or that variable string that was put in here in the initial user input, and we use that variable to build another string using concatenation using our plus signs. So this is an awesome tool, and I would like to thank you so much for being here for part 1 of our toolkit. And we have the tools now to display, store, combine, and get information. And we are going to continue with part 2 next.